Werewolves, also known as lycanthropes, are the oldest legends of human monsters in the recorded history. Werewolf is the name given to man turned wolf, very famous from the Hollywood movies. But ancient Greek and Roman world believed that these monsters actually existed and were absolutely deadly. Throughout history, there are records of the trials of confessed or accused werewolves. In history, there were cases of people executed as werewolves. Most of them were serial killers. For example, the case of Pierre Bourget and the Michael Worden in 1521, and Gilles Garnier, otherwise known as Werewolf of Dole, in 1573. Shockingly, in the 16th century, 30,000 people in France were accused to be werewolves. If we go deep into history, we'll find beliefs, fears, and histories surrounds the legends of the werewolves. According to Gary Branner, author of The Howling, if you find in history of Greece, Middle Europe, Asia, they have been hearing the werewolf stories from their ancestors many centuries ago. At the dawn of civilization, there was little that separates man from beasts. At that time, people thought humans could revert to animals, and this belief called shape-shifting. According to Daniel Cohen, the author of Werewolves, you can find pictures of half human, half animal in the ancient places, in caves, all around the world. In the 5th century BC, not so much in the shadows that werewolf wasn't noticed by ancient Greek father of history Herodotus. In the 5th century BC, he reported in his travels shape-shifting people as neurons. According to him, each neuron changes itself once a year into the form of wolf and remains in that shape for several days. One of the werewolf story came from Roman satiricon Petronius. He was among the first to explain the relationship between werewolf and the full moon. Petronius wrote of a man who went to meet his mistress in the full moon. He asked a soldier friend to accompany him. On the way, soldier tore his clothes apart and turned into the werewolf and ran into the darkness. According to the Daniel Cohen, there is a belief that somehow the full moon creates madness in people, lunacy. So there is a natural magical connection between werewolves and the full moon. Anyways, arriving at his mistress's home, man learned his servant fought with werewolf and gave a sharp wound behind its neck. Next day, they discovered the soldier with the wound. It's widely believed that if a werewolf gets a sharp wound, it will turn back into human, but wound stayed. In those times, there were witches also. Both werewolves and witches were treated same because they both were thought to belong devil. In 1500s, there was some symptoms or symbols to recognize a werewolf. Human with big eyebrows that meet together, having hair on palm or rough palm, living alone away from others, was supposed to be werewolves. There were not only werewolves but she-wolves also. In a very famous story of a she-wolf from central France, a hunter was attacked by a wolf in 1558. In the battle, the hunter managed to slice off paw of the wolf and put it into a pouch. When he pulled out the paw to show to others, it was a slender hand of a woman with the gold wedding ring on one finger. By recognizing the finger, he went up and found his wife bandaging the bloody chopped arm. She was burned after she confessed to be a she-wolf. A more infamous case of a werewolf execution is that of a German man named Peter Stump. Peter was supposedly caught by his neighbors in his wolf form. They witnessed him taking off his wolf girdle when they closed in on him, at which time he reassumed his human form. Peter confessed to murder, rape, and cannibalism. His mistress and daughter were torturously executed immediately after he was. The reason they were executed? For having knowledge of his crimes and sex with him. Yes, his daughter was executed for being raped by her father. Her father had killed her brother and eaten his brain before he was captured. But these are not first descriptions of werewolves in history. The most popular story in which most of the people believe to be the starting of werewolves came from Roman poet Ovid. Writing in the 1st century, he told of an ancient Greek king, Lycan, who was so cruel. Once, the king of gods, Jupiter, visited him. Lycan did not believe that God himself visited him and tested him by serving human meat. Jupiter punished this transgression by transforming Lycan into a werewolf. In this werewolf form, he could continue his abomination of eating human flesh with less offense. From the name of King Lycan, the word lycanthropes came, meaning people who transforms from human to werewolves. Slowly with the time, people thought by wearing an animal skin they can become like that animal. Vikings made this belief as part of their military arsenal by getting into bear skins before battle. This practice contributed to their reputation for being absolutely fearless warriors. As early as 2nd century AD, Roman doctors described werewolfism as a psychological disease, a form of depression. Today, psychiatrists have a name for mental illness when a person believes that he or she actually turns into a werewolf. Lycanthropy. Such a person can crawl, howl, or run around during attack of this illness. Now, according to psychiatrists and doctors, few people who thought that they were werewolves were actually suffering from this mental illness, while others were under the influence of drugs caused by wolfsbane or other plants that cause mental confusion, wild excitement, etc. Another explanation of werewolf sighting could be another medical disease discovered later. Hypertrichosis is a rare genetic disorder, occurs very rare. It causes increased hair growth all over the body. This could make a child look like an animal, like a dog or werewolf. The reason werewolves became so famous is because of Hollywood movies. It was shown in movies that if a werewolf bites a person, that person becomes werewolf. No, this is only the werewolf movies rule. Werewolves don't bite, but tear its prey apart and eat. But according to ancient stories, werewolves had the power to fascinate. The werewolf has evolved throughout the history. What most of us has accepted as legend was once very real. It began with the way to explain the unexplainable, a creature to blame for the atrocity of man and symbol of sexuality and power. Werewolves has a permanent place in our past and continues to live on primarily for our entertainment.
All day and all night, we'd stay up, it felt so right. We were so young.